Picture this. I'm a playwright, so I have to do things theatrically, so I'm going to give you a picture. You live in a neighborhood that's not what it used to be. Not the way you knew it when you were growing up, when your parents were growing up, when your grandparents were growing up. Back then, you used to know everybody in your street, in your neighborhood, at your church. Back then, you knew the rhythm of the year, everyone spoke the same language, had the same customs. Back then, the young respected their elders, their teachers, there was order, there was peace, and there was reason. Back then, you had something to be proud of, because your nation had a long history that no one put down because you were the best and you knew it. Yes, there were foreigners back then, there always were, but not in your neighborhood, not only in your shops, not only in your businesses, not demanding that you observe their customs. Back then, the politicians listened. Once even, they used to come to your door to see how things were going. They lived modestly as far as you could tell, and they seemed to be public servants, or at least they didn't rub their corruption in your face back then. Girls back then were modest. Boys back then were always boys, but the majority never caused any trouble. Back then, it was quiet and decent, and back then, everybody knew their place. But times have changed. None of this exists anymore. Now you see men holding hands in the street. Now you see young girls half naked lying drunk in the gutters. Now you hear loud, stupid music. Now you hear jokes you can't understand. Now the prices keep going up, and for what? For junk. And there's an economic crisis that nobody seems to be able to fix. And the bankers are getting richer and richer and richer. Then one day, a nice young man comes to your door. You thought they didn't make him like that anymore. He's polite, he's nice, he talks about you, what you need. And somehow, by some strange reason, he can recall the good old days that you remember. And he offers to make sure that your mother gets to walk to the shops to and fro on her own, past the yobs who hang out at the corner. He and his friends can sort that out for you. They just need a talking to, and he does sort them out. Plus, the other thing that happens is the rubbish delivery suddenly is on time. Suddenly you see a policeman on the beat for the first time in years. And then your food reappears in a local shop, the food that makes you feel comfortable and safe and reminds you of the good old days that are gone. Then one day, the nice young man arrives and asks you to vote for him in the local elections. He leaves his literature behind. It's all about taking the country back. It's all about the glory days when the country was the best in the world. It's all about all the lost heroes in the world. So yeah, you vote for him, and he gets in. And your neighborhood becomes gradually and beautifully the way it used to be. The foreigners move away. You feel that maybe you might be able to keep your door unlocked the way it was when you were a kid. Then one day, the party leader comes around. He's running for national office. You vote for him. You vote for him because you want to continue that quiet life. You vote for him because that party listens to you, understands you, wants what you want, is what you are, and will help you and agrees with you when you say that everybody is telling lies. And this party will return your nation back to the way it was. This party understands you. This is a depiction of a neighborhood in Berlin on this date, January 30th, 1933, the day that Adolf Hitler was elected Chancellor of Germany. And the thing to keep in mind is this: Hitler was elected. He didn't come down the street in a peaked cap and long black shiny raincoat, jackboot stomping, screaming and hollering and kicking butt. He didn't do that. He got elected. He took his oath of office in a suit and a tie, and he smiled. People loved Adolf Hitler because he spoke to them and he said what they needed to hear. Sometimes I think that we progressives underestimate the value of cheap fantasy. We underestimate the power of nostalgia. We underestimate fantasy masquerading as history. We underestimate fear. We underestimate ignorance. We underestimate anger and rage and helplessness. When all these things are afoot, the fascists move in. They know that most folks want a quiet life. That's all they want, with their things around them and their families looked after and their jobs and somebody to take care of them when they're sick, and that's it. Sometimes we're so busy using big words and big analysis and big theories that we forget that most folks live their lives in very small and very personal ways, and they need simple answers and they need results. We all know that the so-called developed world is turning toward the right. Anyone who thought that the election of the first ethnic minority person to the most powerful position on earth would change things was dreaming. There is a huge fight back in the United States right now against change. And here in America, people are sleepwalking to the right because they have been given no vision of the future. And the past and its certitudes are the only refuge. A female household name said recently in an interview that Labor had let her down, showed she wasn't going to vote. All I could think of was, how dare you? How dare you cavalierly say that you won't vote after what the suffragettes went through to ensure that you could, and all the other movements and individuals who suffered and died, so that you could have the option of making a stupid statement like that. We must never forget that our species resists change, and therefore that change is slow. Change is slow, that moves us forward as human beings. But change cuts both ways. Change can also be rollback. To my mind, we must get our constituencies out to vote, and particularly first-time voters and the young, who, by the way, no one is addressing. No one is talking to white. No one is talking to white, working-class boys who are being groomed and pimped by the right. No one is talking to young men and boys, full stop. That's just the beginning, no matter what color they are. 77 years ago, as our mythical citizen voted for the Nazi Party, he didn't know what he was voting for. To him, he was voting for safety and peace and quiet. That was all that he thought that it was about. That was all that he thought